I think probably Burt Reynolds is the thing that you take away from this, and like, I think for people probably a little younger than me, Burt Reynolds is like a caricature who kind of has this revival with Boogie Nights, but for the most part is this like kind of winking, faded star. But this is like this is Harrison Ford.
Yeah.
This is watching like a full-fledged movie star in like entering his prime.
Kind of like the same thing, Burt. Like when I'm getting older and I'm starting to like pay attention to stuff, Burt Reynolds is in his like Lonnie Anderson era.
Yeah.
Right? And so you're watching him like that as an older star in between having been this gigantic movie star and going to be the elder statesman that he would be. And when you see him in this, he's so young, he's so virile, he's so funny. You're like, oh my God, this guy was a big, huge deal. And it like opens you up to what a big, huge film star he was like in the 60s and the 70s.
Like a five-tool guy where you're like, man, you can do comedy and you can convincingly play football, and it can seem like all the guys like you and all the women want to be with you. Like this is pretty wild.
And he was on The Tonight Show a lot, and he was one of the great Tonight Show guests. When The Tonight Show, you'd have 20, 25 million people watching The Tonight Show on a Tuesday night. And he was always one of the best guests. And then he just started, once he hit that Smoking the Bandit phase, he's just putting out 2 movies a year, and there weren't even really premises. Yeah. Cannonball Run is barely a movie. He's just driving cross country,
a bunch of famous
cracking
people
jokes.
Yeah.
I saw all those movies in the theater, Starting Over, The End, Paternity, Smoking the Bandit 1 and 2, like on and on and on. But we did Deliverance a while ago. And that was the one that put him on the map as a star. This was the movie, I think, that cemented it. You watched White Lightning on Tubi?
Yeah, I was just like messing around.
Year before this?
Doing a Burt Reynolds run on Tubi, that and Gator, a couple of the other like kind of B movies that he's hamming it up in from the 70s. Yeah, they're all actually pretty entertaining though, man.
There's a stardom from this era we talked about with Newman and Slapshot. Redford had it. Bird had it. I don't know. Like it's hard for me to even think of guys from this era who could have done all the things he does.
It's charisma.
Part.
It's the charisma.
It's a charisma, swagger. You can totally believe that this assistant of the warden would give the game tapes to them to have sex with them for 15 minutes. You could believe that he could somehow navigate this prison world and be okay, that he'd be the coolest guy in the prison, that he's a former quarterback, that he could escape from the cops. You just got to pull off somebody. Like, who is this now? It's basically Brad Pitt 10 years ago, but I don't even think it's Brad Pitt.
The thing is that he's acting in the movie, but the charisma is so battering that like every scene you feel like that's actually the guy.
Right.
That part of it, I can't think of anyone who embodies that as much anymore like Burt Reynolds did.
I think Denzel had it in the late 90s, early 2000s. There's, but even that, like, you got to pull off.
Though.
True, he would have been playing the charisma.
There's something about even the construction of scenes from that era, though, too, of what is being asked of the actor, what they have to do. And we talked about this with Slapshot and Goldman talking about like Newman and these guys and how they just didn't need to do much.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And there's a scene in Longest Yard we're going to obviously talk about where Newman goes and all the black prisoners are playing basketball. And Newman just basically walks up to the sideline and stands there for 5 minutes and then walks away. Reynolds. He doesn't do anything.
Yeah.
He literally stands there. The guys say a few things to him. Granny's like, I got this.
He's got a little small smirk on his face.
He's got a little smirk.
Yeah.
You're just like, I'm magnetized by what's happening here.
Yeah.
There's nothing is said that doesn't need to be said. And then he walks away and you're like, how is that a gripping scene in a movie? Mm-hmm. And it is. And all movies now would probably work so hard to like explain things or to justify things, or the actor would need to get his home run line before he walked off. Nope. He's just like, I'm just going to stand here. I'm going to fuck off.
Some years ago, TNT did these commercials. And these commercials, when it was TNT, We Know Drama, or maybe it was USA, I can't remember.
TNT.
But they would do these commercials where they have like these small little snippets with actors, right? Most of the time it was kind of stupid. But there was one with Patrick Stewart where Patrick Stewart goes like, screen presence like can't be taught. Like you go to acting school to learn how to mimic it, to like pass it off, but it can't really be taught. There's one scene in here with the Native American guy. Where he says, don't make an ethnic joke. And then when the guy says, how? Burt Reynolds literally just gives you 30% of a smile.
Yeah.
And it's hysterical. He's just a movie star.
Yeah, he thinks about it and he's like, we'll work on it.
Yeah. Like he's just hysterical. He's a movie star. And in that same way, he can be funny. He can be the hero. He can be the sex symbol. He can be all of that. That type of 5-tool player
But he
is
had
the movie star.
a whiff of darkness to him that I always think that came from real life too. I mean, there's some tough Burt Reynolds stuff, but which I think is the difference in him and somebody like Clooney. Where if you remade The Longest Yard with Clooney at his like charisma peak in like the late 90s.
The Longest Yard, yeah.
Well, but you know what I mean. I like Clooney. You wouldn't buy in the scene in the beginning, which is a pretty horrible scene with the girl.
It's disgusting. Yeah.
But Burt, you're like,
but Clooney's also very serious. Like Clooney's popping up. There's a difference, but there's an actor that wants to drink brandy and be taken as a guy who kind of just wants to be out there as just a dude freewheeling. And then at a certain point, just to be honest with you, there was a self-importance that most of these guys had to have. Like Clooney breaks the movie and then he goes to Darfur and stuff. And it changes the way you look at him a little bit. And you don't expect Clooney
that's a good point.
Well, you know how you like also hear stories about guys from that era up through Harrison Ford where it's like acting is like this thing they fell into and it's like the 5th or 6th thing they wanted to do.
Yeah.
Whereas like
Burt was like a failed college football player.
A lot of performers today, you're like, I can tell this is the thing that you have wanted for your whole life. And like you are going to do everything you can to keep your grip on it. Like when you watch Bradley Cooper, I like a lot of Bradley Cooper movies, but like he looks like he's holding the wheel really tight, right? In his movies and in his like interviews and stuff. Burt Reynolds could not give a shit. Burt Reynolds torpedoes more movies than he helps.
Yeah.
Because he's just like put the camera there. I'm going to smile.
Let's make the picture.
I'm going to improv 3 lines and I'm not going to give you what you need. How about that?
Well, that's why it went so badly for him starting in the late 80s because he was such a charisma actor. But when he got old, then all of a sudden he had that wig. Yeah. And he just kind of lost it for 10 years. And then it came back miraculously in Boogie Nights, a movie that he ended up hating.
Because he embraced
embraced his age,
yeah.
But he still had that sparkle to him and that little wink. And, you think about some of the funniest, best scenes in that movie, like him in the hot tub when Dirk's,
but I think
I
if
thought
that's
of my name, it's going to be Dirk Diggler. And Burt Reynolds like, but that's a great name.
But if that's the Jack Horner movie, it doesn't work as well.
Right.
If he's got to carry 85% of those scenes.
At that stage of his life, he's in. Well, there's another piece with him. First of all, Adam Sandler remakes this movie, and I, as you guys know, I'm a huge Adam Sandler fan. Burt's funnier than Adam Sandler, who's like one of the best movie comedians of the past 50 years. The quarterback piece with Burt, I think he's the most believable sports movie
QB
actor that we've had
ever.
Of any like real actor who got thrown into a movie like this, I think he's the most convincing. I think he's the best.
That's interesting.
Wesley Snipes?
No.
Dwayne from Above the Rim, he was a real basketball player.
I'm talking about stars.
Oh, star, because there are a lot of other guys.
Really, the competition would probably be Costner, who seemed really comfortable playing baseball, especially in For Love of the Game.
Yeah.
When
Costner's taking like batting practice in Bull Durham, like
but like even like when he's trying to throw a no hitter in For Love of the Game, it's pretty convincing. Denzel was good in the basketball scenes, and he got game. But Burt really feels like you could just plug him into like the WFL that year, and he could have like maybe gone 8-6.
I don't want to get ahead of us, but the reason that you can do a 47-minute football game in a movie is because it looks like all those guys are playing football,
which they were.
Burt Reynolds in that last scene, you're like, damn, that's Burt Reynolds, like running an option.
He's an actual football player as well. So that, and he not just like Hov has this line where he says, "I walk like a ball player," and you kind of know what he means when you have the swagger and the body control and all of that stuff. Yeah, and he carries himself. He looks like an athlete, like a functional athlete, and
he had a gun. Like there's at least one. What's he throw like a 50-yard touchdown in the first half? Yeah. And it's Burt Reynolds, and he's throwing it, and it's a 55-yard Drake May rope.
Right.
That's how I work Drake May.
Drake May, you're
it's my new hero. But he reminded me of Drake May in that scene.
But But it's obvious, and that's the one thing. It's obvious when an actor got with some specialist and learned how to dribble a ball or throw a ball or do something 6 months before the movie started.
Yeah.
And when you've been doing it, and there's muscle memory, and you know how to run and turn and do all of that stuff, it's like you can't fake that.
It's like Chris when you see him on the court. You just know.
Chris, you who?
Not anymore. That's its 9th grade.
Reynolds Reynolds, it's funny, we did Newman and Slapshot 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And from an A+ lister charisma standpoint, this is on par with that.
For sure.
But then you throw in the athletic part. It's way up there. For me, it's I think the best athletic performance by a real famous actor in a sports movie. I would put it against anything.